Can I put them above 7?
Yeah, I don't know. I like it. I want to like it. And that's it.
Welcome to the 2022 previews for the Overwatch League. We're on to the Boston Uprising now, where, my God, they have a lot of players. 9 players.
Yeah.
3 in each position. And probably overall maybe an upgrade from last season. They retained only 2. 3. Valentine, Punk, and Faith. So 3 players. Probably you'd say 3 of their better players, if not their best players, and kind of rebuilt everything around it. Boston, to me, look like a team that are interested in turning around their previous season, which I think they'd be pretty upset by in various cases, where they had a reasonable team on paper, but then they ended up being the first team, and I think the only team to lose to last year's Vancouver Titans. So kind of ruined Bread Bowl a little bit there. I still haven't forgiven Boston for that. But here they are, retooled and upgraded, and I still think, not that we're doing to rank them just yet, but it's feeling like a middle-of-the-pack team, again, with some good potential. Why don't we start on the DPS line again? Striker, Valentine, Victoria, gentlemen. So Valentine returns, now backed up by Striker, who was last seen retired, but before that, the San Francisco Shock, and then and then other than that, we have Victoria from Uprising Academy as a hard hit scan player who replaces I'm 37. So, thoughts on this trio?
In one hand, I'm excited to see Striker come back. I think not to completely go on a tangent, but I do think Tracer is going to have an important role in Overwatch forever, end, period, full stop, right? The majority of time spent playing this game, you'll probably be seeing Tracer, even if there are some windows that you don't see it. Ergo, Striker should be a fantastic pickup. Victoria, I think, as much as we applauded IM37's growth last year, from all the things that, expectations are put around him, should be quite good. I think Valentine has a lot more to prove, and I don't think we saw a good season out of him. I think he can rise up to those expectations. Avril, I think you can speak to that as well. I think it's a good DPS lineup in a vacuum. I'm more concerned about some outside things, personally.
Outside things?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm looking at the team as a whole, and I'm like, I see a very clear road that you could go down.
Are you talking about other positions? We don't talk about them yet, but just trying to get an idea of like what you mean.
No, not positional. It's purely logistics and how like the game script of rosters that kind of look like this possibly can go.
Okay, you're being very vague, Joe. I feel like I need to press a little bit further.
So, okay.
I don't even understand. When you're subtweeting like this, I don't even get what you're talking about.
So let me just explain myself, right? I look at this team and I think, dang, look at all these great players. Individually, they're sick. Crimso's good. Punk's good. They had a great season last year. I liked what Crimso did on Dallas. I can't even remember where he was last year. I'm going to be completely honest. Yeah, he was good, though. I liked Punk last year for Boston. He was quite a standout player and helped them. Yes, he was. That other Texas team, whatever. You hate me. That said, I see them starting with them integrated, but by the end of the season, I worry about their place on this team. And I think that internally, I'm concerned. I'm concerned if they start with them and they end up underperforming and they get pushed out to try to consolidate into a single, language roster that also has its growing pains. That's going to keep them middle of the pack. It doesn't feel like a clear direction to me.
That bad I mean, okay, hypothetically, if Punk and Crimso get benched, is that bad in your opinion?
In a vacuum, no, but logistically, that means you spent time practicing with Crimso and Punk preseason. Okay, that's fine. We come in, we lose. That sucks. We keep losing. That sucks even more. Okay, what do? We try to integrate into like lowest common denominator. Let's try to fix what's going on. Maybe it's a comms thing. Okay, we go fully Korean. Now we've spent all that time practicing, and in some ways it's kind of a waste. In some ways it's not. And you have to shift gears. That's never been something that I've been very agreeable to.
What if
they kind of feel like they're treading water a little bit?
What if they're just winning? Their first 3 games are Vancouver, and then
Mhm.
London, and then Washington. 3 winnable games.
Very winnable.
Wait, no, it's Glads.
But I don't know.
And Toronto. Glads. Wait.
Isn't it?
Oh, sorry, there is Glads. Sorry, my bad. There's also Glads in there as well.
Yep.
So some
Sure.
winnable, some less winnable. So my bad. So it's Vancouver Glads into, I believe it's London
Yes. Toronto.
and
Justice.
Toronto, Washington. So kind of like a 50-50 start in their first 6 games.
Mm-hmm.
It could go 3-3. I don't know. I feel like you're going down a road of like some major hypotheticals here.
Well, 100. Like I'm waving my hand, screaming. This is a hypothetical scenario. They could just go on winning, and this could never be an issue for the season ever, right? But just to stem some expectations, if things go a little poorly, I think we're back to Boston, treading water, middle of the pack. They're gonna be fine. They're gonna be fun to watch. They might even do some weird stuff. I'm interested to see more of Laurie's coaching style. It felt like he was on the cusp of doing some very interesting things with Valentine, but we'll see.
I just don't know if what you're saying is really like a applicable thing for Boston when internal issues with losing can and will happen to every single team that is losing.
Agreed.
And that just ends up being, to me, not a Boston specific thing. Yeah, we know Boston have had some internal things in the past, but I think a lot of teams have had internal issues in the past.
Agreed. And that's exactly where I'm branching this kind of speculation from. When you look at a team and you kind of have to prepare to lose in a weird way, right? When you look at this team and you try to integrate in Western players into a fully Korean mix, there could be issues, much in the same way we could have said there's going to be issues with Shock last year, much we could have said about the Spark, right? A lot of these teams are trying to integrate into a mixed roster, and they have to commit to that. If they commit and they just see it through the entire way, that's fantastic. I don't trust these teams to do that, if I'm going to be completely honest. This isn't a Boston thing. This is just we've seen this game script before. It doesn't work this way.
We've seen plenty of teams run mixed rosters. This is not a new thing at all. This is not a new phenomenon. And even
That's
Boston
fair.
ran a mixed roster last year.
Yeah.
And we can say, okay, well, did it work out well? But then there were teams that did work out well for mixed roster. So it's just too hard and weird to go down that road because I don't see, unless we want to go down the road of like, Stryker and Huck have a charity boxing match or maybe less charitable than that. I don't see any immediate reason why I would think this roster doesn't work out. That couldn't just apply to anybody. So again, it's focusing on just the DPS lining, Stryker, Valentine, Victoria. Yiska, any thoughts on that?
I think that's a really reasonable DPS line. Probably not competing for the best, but it's like an A+ level DPS line. I think like Striker, of course, stands out. Hopefully he has some more left in the tank. I think Valentine is a really good DPS player. I think Victoria is probably underrated, and generally speaking, I think you kind of have to compare it against everyone else, and there, I don't know. We're kind of in this luxury position where there's very few teams that just have very clearly bad DPS lines. But I'm not sure. It said, let me go down the list. Okay, so of course Dallas is better. At this point, I'm not sure if Glads is better. And then Kai, Atlanta is probably better. Shock is probably better. Okay. I guess they're average in NA.
It's about average then. It's about average.
Yeah.
You're really hoping for, I think, when you're talking about this line, you're really hoping for a Tracer meta to develop.
Right.
And yeah, Joe's right. Tracer's been meta for a long time, but who knows? We get to Overwatch 2. Tracer has 100 HP now and only 2 blinks and nothing else.
Yeah, that's on the table.
Like, all the crybabies on Battle.net forums like, nerf Tracer, and then they do, and then she's dead.
Mm-hmm.
So thanks.
You think they're putting Roadhog as the Overwatch League logo?
Hey, who knows?
Not even Roadhog, just his belly. Just you look at his belly where like a team logo would be, and it's just the Overwatch logo on his belly, and that's the cover art. That's the box art right there. That's what they put on the shelf. we know Striker plays a few other heroes, obviously, but there's going to be a little bit of overlap with Victoria because his other heroes are predominantly hit scan and not a huge pool. Victoria, I've seen a little bit of footage, and what I hear about people is he was probably one of the biggest players on Uprising Academy. In fact, he was like a huge carry for them, doing absolute crazy stuff. I've heard about players going up against Victoria and just being like, "Holy crap, this guy's doing a lot." So, for all intents and purposes, he might have been a driving force on that Uprising Academy team. And from what I saw, like, yeah, I mean, again, I hadn't watched them. I don't think I've watched enough to make any, super conclusive comments about Uprising Academy or Victoria. But I just know that he was a top performer on that team and a top performer in NA contenders. And I believe he was actually physically in NA. There were a couple players that weren't on the Uprising Academy team. He may have been one of the players that were in NA. I got to say, man, Boston are kind of killing it as far as tier 2 support goes. They're like the only Academy team still in North America, at least. Not talking about Asia here, but in North America, they're the only Academy team operating. And going as far as actually shipping their players to NA to play from NA for Academy is pretty insane. So they get to kind of reap the rewards of that, see how that goes. Victoria could be a gem. I think he's a hidden player that not a lot of people are talking about enough. And he could be a player that really steps up. The problem is he goes up against, a bunch of other really hyped rookies and also up against a lot of returning players on HitScan that are just really good. So I'll temper my expectations for Victoria right now. I think this is what Yiska was about right. Probably a middle of the pack, both team and DPS line.
Yeah.
Very dependent on whether they can unlock Striker's best parts. Valentine probably has more to show than what we had last year, but will depend if we get to a position where that can happen or not. Tank line, 3 players. Oh boy. Now, we had talked a little bit about what we thought this Itzel signing could have been. And I was specifically speculating that maybe Boston were selling off a player. Now, that hasn't happened yet. It might not actually happen at all. Maybe they legitimately just have 3 tanks for whatever reason. Marvel, Itzel, Punk. And 2 of those are main tank players. Marvel's kind of like a 50-50 kind of player. Punk is definitely an off-tank player. So there's 2 ways to look at this. One is that how does this 3 tank dynamic work? Is it just 2 players permanently benched and 1 player gets all the play time? Are they going to try and share play time between 3 of them, 2 of them, 1 of them is benched? Who knows? And the other dynamic is, even with 3 tanks on the roster, it's still a 5v5 game. So we can almost kind of mentally block out 2 players and just think about 1 player and how that would work in 5v5. So they could still hypothetically do super well. Even if I think it's a mistake to have 3 tank players, results-wise, they could still be winning because, as long as 1 of their 3 tanks is performing well, they can get results. So I have to kind of decouple that a little bit. I have to kind of decouple my dislike of having a huge tank line with the fact that it could potentially still work.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the rationale there is. I'm also honestly not sure about Itzel as a player. That's just like a question mark for me. I'm not saying he's like not good. I'm saying I don't know. But yeah, it's a weird situation there. I think generally speaking, Punk is kind of nice with it. Who would you expect to be starting here?
Agree. Punk. Will he? Don't know.
It's very meta dependent. Like, again, I mean, you have to really consider what hero is meta at any given time. Yeah, I mean, I would say that Punk is like kind of one of their franchise players, one of the returning members. And I don't think Itzel would be starting, but I don't. Then again, I just don't know why they signed him then. Is a backup option? Is he just permanently a backup option? Is he trade bait? But that doesn't make sense either because he could have just been signed from Uprising Academy anyway for trading. I could see either Marvel or Punk starting. I just don't know about Itzel. I don't know if I see him starting, but he's there for something. He's there for some reason. I think their tank line will be reasonable. It's just the problem is you're going up against. I think the Vacator Hawk line is better. Fearless Harbin obviously better. I think even on a 1-to-1 basis, despite Houston only have one tank, you probably think Piggy's a better individual depending on the meta. I mean, Houston might get screwed if it's a heavy main tank meta. Like, I mean, shit, maybe Kaluja's even better. Kellen's probably better. Space Reiner could be better for sure. Space definitely going to be better. Mag, I still see a lot coming out of it. Mag Kalios had a reasonable season last year. True. Mag is still a good player. I think he didn't perform up to his full potential, but just knowing where that potential is, I mean, that could still be unlocked. So it ends up to me being a kind of another middle of the pack kind of tank line as well.
Yeah, I would tend to agree for the most part. I think coming into this season, I think we'd all probably agree that we expected teams to be a little bit tighter with their roster size, and seeing this. I think this is the first time that I'm a little concerned when I see bigger rosters. I'm going to be honest. I look at Spark, I look at Boston, maybe even Titans in a weird way, because I have positive things to say about them, but I don't know about their depth. I don't know how this gets used, and that's less of like a woe of the team and more of like, we don't know what this game is. So why are we investing so heavily into it just yet? Why don't we
backup options? It looks like just a shitload of backup options.
I mean, I appreciate that, but that's a lot. I don't know. I feel like I'm flip flopping on that, but I do feel strongly about it at this point that I'm like, I don't know how deep I want to go right now. Maybe mid-season? I don't know. Don't know how I feel about that. But tank wise, yeah, I think they've covered all their bases. They seem good enough. Who starts beats the shit out of me. I would say Punk.
So let's go towards the support line now. Faith, Crimson, MC. I think this is one of the more strikingly positive parts of the team. Faith returning is really strong. I think he was one of the better players, well regarded by Boston internally as well. Crimzo had a really good season on Houston. That Crimzo interview that you did, that one, did you, Joe? I think.
No, I think that was sub for GG Recon. Yep.
Yeah. So, so GG Recon did. So you didn't do it, Yiska? It was someone else, and Seb from GG Recon. Okay, got it. Yes, that's a really good interview to look at, by the way, for anyone interested. Crimzo says some good stuff, really interesting things, and some of the things that some of the parts that kind of struck me were talking about how much he believed in the Boston system. Didn't take long for him to sign either. He signed pretty quickly to Boston. He was exploring his offers. Felt like he landed where he wanted to go and didn't feel the need to shop around for too much. So he took the offer and went with it. So, I mean, he feels pretty strongly about joining this team. And he actually mentioned as well, when in initial discussions with Boston, like, who are they keeping? What's their vision for the team? Got told they were keeping Valentine, Punk, Faith. Crimzo's like, yep, I think those are the best players as well to keep. So it just feels like Crimzo really aligned with what Boston want to do for this year, which is cool. And then Boston rounded up with another flex support on MCD. Controversy aside, individually as a player, mechanically, he was quite good for the Spark. I think he was one of the better parts for the Spark last year that was really holding his own. I think there was various points in Spark's campaign where I said there were 3 players really holding their own and putting Spark in contention to win games when otherwise they looked they were maybe shitting the bed, and those 3 players were Shy, Gushui, and MCD. And when those 3 players were on the same page and doing what they needed to, they were kind of carrying the other 3 guys in their team. Shy is obviously Shy, but then you have the MCD, Anna plus Gushui, Winston during various stages where they were playing, I think, double bubble, which is Winston-based comps, which is obviously going to be Gushui's strong point. Those were really good moments for the Spark, and MCD was part of that. So again, controversy aside, I think individually he has a lot to bring. And I mean, fuck it, this is apparently the year of controversial signings. So, every team has just looked at each other, shook hands on it, and be like, fuck it, anyone can play. Fuck it. Maybe he'll redeem himself. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I'm not here to talk about controversy, but as a player, I think he's still got something to show here. So, reasonable player.
Yeah. I I like all these players in a vacuum. The meme, haha, I pick Faith for the whatever the hell draft it was, but there are like reasons for that, right? Like you hear stirrings that statistically he's performing very well. He's extremely good in scrims. He's a good player to have around in the team. You look at Crimzo. Since Envision Esports, this kid has been synonymous with relative success within NA. And I would echo the same sentiments with MCD in APAC. Yeah, I don't know. I like it. I want to like it, and that's it.
This is probably the part of the team that I think I like the most.
Yeah,
I don't want to undervalue the other parts too much, but like I think if there's one area that they actually really compete with on other teams, it is definitely the support line. Yeah. Yiska, did you already speak on the support line? I can't remember.
I feel like it's really solid. I think once again, like we said already last year, and Joe also implicitly with his pick this year, that Faith is a main support you should be valuing. They value him highly. I think Crimzo definitely has been the best flex support from the Western side for probably 2 seasons now. I think if they have to double flex support, MCD is reasonable. Yeah, I don't know. This is just a good one. It pretty much feels like their DPS line feels. It's just generally a very balanced team. It's not if anything, you could maybe think that Striker, a peaking Striker is probably the shining thing that we know about. I'm not sure if there's other things there, but everything else here is just perfectly balanced in the power levels I would expect from them.
So power level now, let's actually get into that as we wrap up Boston Uprising. Where do you see this team right now among the NA crowd? What's your kind of range for a team like this?
Mid. That's a mid.
Yeah,
mid, but bottom half or top half? Because out of 13 teams, so if we say that number 7 exactly the median there? Why is my math bad?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, number 7. So are they above number 7 or below number 7? Or are they just number 7?
They are number 7.
I would say 7 too. I think this is just your league average team.
Just flat in the middle. Yeah. Don't say you wouldn't. I don't think league average would be accurate because we haven't included APAC yet. And
no,
so once you shove in the APAC teams, they go from 7 to 15th or something. No, I'm joking, but
agreed.
You shove right down and we're adding
NA average. That's the NA benchmark is going to be Boston.
Okay, so NA benchmark is low then. Gotcha. No, but seriously, 7th. Okay, let me just say. Let me have a think about this. Do I put them above? Because for them to be 7th, I'd have to put them above 6 other teams. Would I put them above 6 other teams? Let me have a good think about this. Let's just do a bit of counting in my head. I was looking for teams to put below Boston, and for some reason my eyes went to Boston. I could put this team. Oh, that is the same team. My bad. No, I wouldn't even. I don't know that I'd have them 7th. I think I'd put them. My range would be closer to 7 to 9.
Okay.
If not 7 to 10. Let me think about that for a second. 7 to 10 means it's 13, 12, 11. So they have to be above 3 for sure. I think they can be above 3 for sure. Can it be above 4? I think they can be above 4. 13, 12, 11, 10. So 7 to 9 would be pretty good.
Yeah.
Can I put them above 7? Probably not. I think I have a stable top six in my mind. And I don't think they could breach 7. This is why I think the 7 is even not there for me.
Maybe, yeah.
I think I'd be more comfortable doing it at 8 or 9. That's why I'll do 7 as I'll do the very top I see them doing on paper is probably a 6 at the very most, and that would require them to upset somebody they'd have to take down a Toronto, Shock, New York, or Houston level team. If they can do that, they can breach 6. Once you get to 5, it's going to be you can't really do that because now we're talking about top 5 for me is very solid in terms of having Rain and stuff up there. So Boston would have to be really punching above their weight to get anywhere 6 or even attempting to go above that. You would have to have teams like Rain shitting the bed.
Yep.
And then Boston would have to at the same time simultaneously be playing out of their minds. You have to have a perfect tracer meta. Striker goes full nutty mode. And only teams with tracers can keep up, and teams that don't are just sad. So I think reliably, I'll stick to my 7 to 9. I'll just say that. I'll just say 7-9.
Yeah,
Cool.
no, I don't hate that.
Would agree.
It is definitely harder to place them once you actually go down the list. Like, I could see them beating out a team like Defiant. I could see them beating out Justice. I can see them be better than Outlaws. Can I see them be better than anyone else? I actually thought it was quite spicy that you had Shock this low, and in the conversation with the rest of those teams. I don't think that's that for me. I think there's no chance they are going to be better than Shock.
I don't think. I'm not saying Shock is 6th place. I'm not saying Shock is 6th place. I'm just saying, like, if Shock were to go down, if they were low, they'd be something closer to 6th.
Mm-hmm.
So I think upper level Shock. Say again?
Are they not that tier level of team? Like with
I'm getting your audio so late.
Are they not in the same tier for you as like Outlaws, Justice, Defiant? Because you mentioned those as like.
Type it out to me, Yiska. Boston. Who? Boston or Shock? It's like I'm talking to you from the International Space Station. Like, it's a bit of a delay, you know, like. Have to wait to see you. Is Shock in the same tier as Houston Justice? Above. I've Shock slightly above those teams. I don't know if I can comfortably put teams in tiers just yet. It's just like, maybe I can. I don't know. I'm not saying like Boston should ever be in striking distance of Shock. But really depends on how they manage. This is not meant to be a Shock discussion. Go watch the Shock episode if you want to hear the longer discussion. It depends on how Colluge and Violet turn out for me. Again. So Violet on the main support, obviously. So that aside, yeah, Boston and Shock shouldn't really be on the same level at all at any point. I think that's about it. I think we're pretty happy to move on then. We can go on to the next team. Thank you for hanging out for the Boston Uprising team preview. We're going to be continuing on with NA coverage now as I swap over my background. Who did we say was next? Okay.